Hi, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us at Space Cowboy Books Online this evening. I'm your host, Jean-Paul, and tonight we are celebrating authors from Fantasy Magazine. I'm going to hand it over to Arlie Sorg, co-editor-in-chief of Fantasy, to say a few words before we get started.
So I'm Arlie. Thank you so much, Jean-Paul. It's been a true privilege to get to showcase wonderful work at Fantasy Magazine these past few years. Readings have been a great way to rediscover some of these pieces and to feel everything they made me feel all over again. So thank you again, Jean-Paul, for giving these authors a spot tonight. I'm eager to hear their stories, and I'm glad that more people get to experience them and enjoy them for the very first time.
Thanks, Arlie. Tonight, we're going to start off the program with Kyung Yoo. Kyung Yoo is a science fiction and fantasy writer and third-degree black belt Taekwondo instructor living in Massachusetts. They have a BA in English, creative writing, and film studies from Brandeis University, but have since abandoned academia to write about ghost, East Asian folklore, and sad robots. Their short fiction has been published by Fantasy Magazine, Fireside, Ghost Orchid Press, Neon Hemlock Press, among others. Their debut novella will be published by Interstellar Flight Press in early 2024. Going to hand it over to Sam to read The End of a Painted World.
Okay. So I'll just go ahead and start. Flaming orange tongues devour the walls around us. The soldiers outside batter at the old wooden doors of the back entrance. Ginkgo holds fast, the ornate mural of ginkgo tree branches and golden leaves glowing like painted sunshine. Her branches twine around each other and interlock as she keeps the way barred, but her light grows dimmer with each impact against her doors. Her paint has started to crack and blacken. I'm sorry, Woojin whispers. They press their hand against the door as if to try and soothe the cracks in Ginkgo's paint. The wounds darken and spread as the fire roars louder. I think this must be what the end of the world looks like. The Emperor's soldiers have surrounded Woojin's house. The tiger and the magpie defends the front entrance with everything they have, but their mural isn't going to last much longer. I can still hear songs of the dragons flying to heaven, fighting the troops outside, but their song has grown weaker. They are one of Woojin's oldest paintings, a sprawling mural of 9 dragons soaring through the clouds that winds across the entire inner wall of Woojin's gardens. They were the first to rise and defend the house when the soldiers arrived. I do not know how much of their wall mural remains. There were 9 voices singing before. Now I can barely hear 3. I take hold of Woojin's arm and start to pull them away. No, wait, Woojin protests weakly as they reach back for Ginkgo's door. Please. But we can't take her with us. Her painting is bound to the door. The traveling swordsman and the warrior monk on the bridge wait by the door with their weapons drawn. They stand close to each other, almost shoulder to shoulder. Woojin painted them as a set, always meant to be displayed together. Each of their paintings takes up an entire 6-paneled folding screen, 2 halves of a single scene. Side by side, they depict a stunning panorama of warriors dueling on a crimson bridge lit by the moon. The soldiers ram the door again, and Ginkgo lets out an agonized, splintered sound. Her light flickers like a sputtering candle. The warrior monk on the bridge steps forward, moving in front of the traveling swordsman with his naginata held in both hands, his shoulders squared. I grip Woojin's hand tightly and tug them towards the stairs. Just as we're about to turn down the next hallway, I look back and meet the traveling swordsman's eyes. He smiles at me one last time. I try my best to smile back. That will have to be enough. There isn't time for anything closer to a goodbye. Once Ginkgo dies, the traveling swordsman and the warrior monk on the bridge will hold off the soldiers for as long as they can, until their spirit bodies break apart and their paintings burn. Woojin is weeping, but the heat of the inferno dries the tears in their face before they can fall. Please stop, they sob as I drag them along. I don't know if they're speaking to me or the Emperor's soldiers. I don't let go of their hand. My painting, The Butterfly Scholar, is a small ink-wash hanging scroll of a young man dressed like a traditional scholar, surrounded by a swarm of black butterflies. Out of all the paintings Woojin has in their home, I am the smallest. Everyone else is anchored to the murals on the walls, the doors, the folding screens. They are all too big or heavy to be carried, except for me. Woojin carries my scroll with them, wrapped in a protective cloth and tucked safely inside their robes. So I am the one who guides them up the stairwell. The smoke is heavy in the confined space and makes them cough. They keep their sleeve pressed over their nose and mouth and close their eyes. I squeeze their hand as I lead them out onto the roof where the smoke spills out and scatters into the night air. There is no moon tonight, and the stars are dim in comparison to the orange glow of the inferno devouring our home. We keep low to the roof, for fear of drawing the eye of any curious soldier on the ground, but the dense plumes of smoke billowing around us seem to obscure us from view. Down below, Songs of the Dragons Flying to Heaven still thrashes and batters at the Emperor's troops. Half of the wall around Woojin's garden is demolished. Most of the mural is of dragons and clouds gouged out and ruined. But 2 of the original dragons remain, their paint still alive and glowing. They knock the soldiers back with their whip-like tails, guarding what is left of their painting, even as incandescence falls from their scales like snow as their spirit bodies weaken. Why? Woojin whispers hoarsely. They sit with their arms hanging limp, their legs splayed across the roof tiles. I wrap my arms around them, tucking my chin against their shoulder. They're crying again. I don't have any answers for Woojin. I don't understand why the Emperor decided we all should die. I don't think I want to understand. The only thing that matters is that Woojin gets out of here alive. My spirit body fragments into thousands of butterflies, black as ink, just like the ones in my painting. Countless wing beats whisper through the night air as I lift Woojin up. It is my turn to carry them now. Down in the ruined garden, the last 2 remnants of Songs of the Dragons Flying to Heaven disintegrate into glimmering dust. And Woojin escapes, carried away into the night sky on a procession of dark wings. And that's the end.
Thank you so much, Sam. Next up, we have Moses Ose Utomi. Moses is a Nigerian-American fantasy writer and nomad currently based out of Honolulu, Hawaii. He has an MFA in fiction from Sarah Lawrence College and short fiction publications in Fireside Magazine, Fantasy Magazine, and more. He is the author of the young adult fantasy novel, Daughters of Aduma, and fantasy novella, The Lies of Ajungo, as well as its forthcoming sequel, The Truth of Akele. When he's not writing, he's traveling, training martial arts, or doing karaoke, with or without a backing track. I'm going to hand it over to Moses to read his story, The Mirror Test.
Thanks, Jean-Paul. Appreciate it. And if anyone wants to follow along, I just posted the story in the chat. I don't perform very well, so feel free to look at the story and read that while I'm reading. The mirror test is a behavioral technique developed in 1970 by American psychologist Gordon Gallup Jr. In the classic test, an animal is anesthetized and then marked, that is painted or a sticker attached, on an area of the body the animal cannot normally see. When the animal recovers from the anesthetic, it is given access to a mirror. If the animal then touches or investigates the mark, it is taken as an indication that the animal perceives the reflected image as itself, rather than of another animal. Very few species have passed the test. This morning, I finally recognized myself. I was in the living room when it happened, licking my testicles. The whole month had been an amnesic stupor, sniffing around the house and neighborhood, searching for my identity. Then, on my 3rd lick, it suddenly became clear. I can't wait to show her. She's almost home. I can smell her car coming around the corner house with the gray forget-me-nots. I can smell the lunchtime coffee on her breath, staining the seams of her cowskin seats, a small pool on the passenger side floor. I can smell the approaching heat off the front grill, hear it rattle like the teeth of a tasty yet frightened squirrel. I smell it all come to a stop on the driveway. My chest quivers. This anticipation, this is what love feels like. Paws up on the couch, tail swishing in fevered applause, looking out through the living room window as she steps out of the car. And what heartbreak feels like. How could she have left me? When she finally sees me, the question evaporates. She bares her teeth. That's how you know a human is happy. It explodes with loving sense. As she traverses the driveway, my heart swells. As she turns the door's lock, my spine shivers. As she steps across the threshold, I lose all restraint. I throw myself at her like a floofy fetch stick. She catches me against her chest, her hands working me over. She ruffles my cheeks, rubs and pats my spine. Our faces touch, If I may be a bit lewd, moisture is exchanged. Two become one. I become her, becomes me, becomes she, sense intermingled, realities melded. In this moment, we recognize each other. She is the smell of coffee and avocado, yoga sweat and gym spandex, sharp brie cheese atop a lunchtime salad, tangy lemon car deodorizer, bed sheets and cologne. And I am, once again, finally, me. Then we part. The one becomes two again. I shimmer with pride, ready for us to celebrate my rediscovered sense of self. But she just sniffs me and pulls away. She speaks, but her words are too fast, too garbled. I never understand. Her bared teeth contort into a closed and down toward mouth, a wrinkled nose and brow. I'm confused. So I sniff. She smells equal parts hesitant and perturbed. Why, my love? What is it? Her frisbee eyes rove my body, then she rises and disappears down the long hall. There's a quiet whine like a strangled squirrel, twice, then thrice, then water rushing through the walls. Huh. From the far side of the house, I hear her call to me. It's all gibberish until a familiar word emerges. Who wants to go for a walk? Walk? I like walks. But even as she moves towards me, I hesitate. Something is wrong. Walk, she repeats. I take shaky steps forward. As I lurch toward her sweet song, I recognize a scent from the rooms to my left and right, emanating from my scatter of old toys, my tin food bowls, my bed. Walk, it's me. The house smells like me. I smell like me. For the first time in a month, everything is in alignment. So why am I afraid? Walk. At the hallway's end, the water is loudest, gushing gray from the bathtub faucet just ahead of me. I can't see her, but I know she's there. She smells like herself and like victory. Then the door closes behind me and I realize all at once what has happened. There will be no walk. She grabs my collar, yanks me up into the tub. I thrash, but my paws can't find purchase on the slick ceramic and the tub is filling. Her grip, the clamp of toothless jaws, is tight on my neck. Her teeth are bared in joy. Laughter ripples her throat. Her rapid, meaningless words flow like the water, both of them splashing over me, leaving me drenched and confused and betrayed. Love, I've learned, is like a squirrel, titillating, delicious, fickle. I thought she loved me, but she only loved the me she could control. The real me she found unbearable, in need of change, in need of erasure. It wasn't the first time, but love, again, like a squirrel, is so often blind. I should have known. I howl. It rips painfully from my gut, as cold and raw as good meat. I thought pain was a universal language, but in the way that I don't understand her, she doesn't understand me. My plea goes unheeded. She pours a substance into her hand that smells like lavender and rosemary, nothing like me. She lathers it into my hair, her fingers kneading deep, piece by piece, from head and back to tails and legs. She scrubs me off, lets me float in foam. I watch me swirl down the drain, and as the last of me spirals away, I sniff. I was the odor of backyard rocks and teddy bear belly, the decaying musk of old lasagna torn from the side of the kitchen trash bag, the aroma of upturned soil and earthworms from the hole near the neighbor's fence, the fragrance of uncut hair, squirrel bits stuck between teeth, wet tongue against meaty testes. That was me. She washed me away. When the deed is finished, she dries with a towel some dog I don't know. She holds it up to the mirror above the sink where another dog, gray and confused, dangles from her grip. She bares her teeth again, gazes at her reflection. That's how she recognizes herself, with sight. When she speaks, I don't understand her words, except for one. See, that's not so bad, is it? Hooper? Hooper. That's how she recognizes me, with sounds. But I sniff, and I sniff, and I don't recognize myself. The dog in the mirror sniffs too, and the longing in his expression fills me with pity. He looks like he's lost something he loved. The end.
Thank you so much, Moses. Next up, we have Kelsea Yoo. Kelsea is a Taiwanese Chinese American writer who is eternally enthusiastic about sharks and appreciates a good ghost story. She has over a dozen short stories and essays published in or forthcoming from Clark's World, Fantasy, Pseudopod, and elsewhere. Her novella, Bound Feet, is nominated for the Shirley Jackson Award, and her debut novel, It's Only a Game, will be published by Bloomsbury Children's in 2024. I'm going to hand it over to Kelsea to read Harvest of the Deep.
Thank you. All right, I will get started. After a decade of abyss diving, it wasn't the jagged stalagmite teeth, puckered slate skin, or uneven, fin-like growths that chilled Li Feng. It was the creature's expression, lidless eyes and two wide jaws shaped like a perpetual scream. I understand. Regretfully, she trapped the creature in a tank provided by the collectors. They had a name for themselves, but in her mind, she renamed them for their greatest desire, to gather exotic curiosities and people from every land they conquered. New specimen tucked under her arm, Li Feng swam upward, passing through layers of marine snow, the ever-present shower of dead cells and detritus falling from the upper layers down to the depths. Upon surfacing, she climbed into the boat. Collector Addison leaned against the cabin door, watching, cold eyes lit with an unusual intensity, rugged features recast in strange ways by the sunset. Li Feng regurgitated the black pearl that lent her an aquatic creature's ability, one of many sacred objects the collectors had claimed for themselves. With a gloved hand, Collector Addison confiscated the bile-covered pearl and the trapped fish, locking both away. Li Feng's cheeks bloomed scarlet in anticipation of his thorough check for contraband. The humiliation never lessened, especially when done with his rough, overly familiar hands. When he was done, she turned away, beginning her mental calculation of the time it would take to reach shore. A hand grabbed her by the shoulder. Li Feng swiveled around to see the triumphant smile creeping across Collector Addison's face. He did not let go. I found your little sister. Li Feng's breath caught. That night, 2 years ago, Ping's eyes wide with terror, hands cold and sweaty as Li Feng pressed the little roll of coins into her palm and told her to run. She's cute, looks like you, but softer, sweeter. I don't have a sister. Collector Addison laughed as he leaned forward, shadow-cut features uglier than that of an abyss specimen. His hot, salty breath thickened the air between them. No? In that case, I'll send the little girl who is not your sister to the whorehouses, unless you give me what I want. Li Feng choked out the words. I've done everything you've asked. We all have. The collector's eyes narrowed. You might have fooled the others. They're content with believing the pearls work better for you because of some inborn fluke that allows barbarians to dive deeper, to stay underwater far longer than civilized folk ever could. They buy your claim that the harvest is an unrelated, primitive ritual, something religious maybe, but I know there's more to it. It's something to do with those thrice-damned creatures. I've tried mapping their movements to weather patterns, drinking soup boiled from their bones, soothsaying with their entrails. Still, the truth eludes me. What is it you harvest from the animals of the abyss? How is it that you, and not I, can harness their powers? Tell me. If not for the thought of Ping trapped in a dirty room with leering men like Collector Addison, Li Feng would have laughed. He'd observed some of their ceremonies. He'd tried his own shoddy imitations. He thought he understood. You want the truth behind the harvest of the deep. He bared his teeth in response. Li Feng held back her rage, keeping her tone even. Your kind sees only what you can take, what you can keep. But it's not creatures we harvest. Those are mere sustenance. It's experience, time in the depths. The pearl only helps facilitate. Collector Addison's greedy eyes widened, soaking up her people's long-held secrets. Visit the abyss long enough and you don't need the pearl, she smiled. Let me show you. Li Feng's arm circled his waist. She held tight as she dropped backward, pulling him into the water with her. The ocean smothered his screams. The end.
Thank you so much. That was Kelsea Yu with Harvest of the Deep. Before that, you heard Moses Ose Utomi with The Mirror Test. And opening up the program was Kyung Yoo with The End of a Painted World. Thank you so much for all these wonderful stories this evening. Thank you to our audience for being here. And thank you so much to Arlie and Fantasy Magazine. We're all really going to miss you. Thank you for all the wonderful stories. For everyone in the audience, make sure to go to that website and read everything while you can. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us at Space Cowboy Books, and we hope to see you at our next program.